What's up? My name is Alex Terranova. I am the host of the Dream Mason podcast. Welcome. We started this in 2017 because we wanted to highlight the journey of Dream Masons. There's a Dream Mason in all of us. A Dream Mason is someone who is awake to their dreams and driven by the passion, the purpose, and the desire to turn that dream into reality. We interview athletes, gold medalists, Super Bowl champions, artists, creatives, 8-9-figure entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, and everyone in between. And sometimes we even walk them through challenges that they're currently facing. So depending on whether you're catching this as a regular interview or a playing with problems segment, there is something for you, whether you're at the peak of your journey, at the low point of your journey. I look forward to having you join me on this journey. And I hope that this show helps you unleash your inner Dream Mason. What's up, and welcome back to the Dream Mason podcast. I am your host, Alex Terranova. This year is flying by. I heard a thing the other day. I don't know if this is true. So if you're listening to this, don't take this as truth, but I thought it was interesting that, you know, how as we get older, it feels like life moves faster. Heard this thing that was like, well, when you're young, the amount of life you've lived has been much shorter. So when you think about the time that you've lived, it's a much shorter process. It's been much shorter amount of time. So it seems like it's much longer and it's taken a long time because the percentage of your life is really small. And when you get to be older, 40, 50, 60, the span of your life is much longer. And so it's, when you think about it, it occurs like it's moving faster because you've already moved through so much of it and there's so much to look back on. And that obviously time doesn't change speeds, but the way we relate to time shifts. Why am I talking about this? Because I think that we have a relationship to everything, and our relationship to everything is what determines the experience of our life. I was talking to a group of guys recently, and I was asking them, what's the experience of your life? And they looked at me kind of bewildered and confused. And they went, what do you mean? I said, like, if your life was a roller coaster and you were walking up and there were all these roller coasters and you had to pick which one you were getting on. And one is, the one that just drops straight down, and one is up and down, and one is the teacups. And, which one would you get on? And every guy had, some various answer. And I think that it's a question that a lot of us could play with or ponder more, is like, what's the experience you want to have of your life? Mine is vacation and adventure. I want the lightness and the peace and the joy and the ease of vacation, but I want the fun and the unexpectedness and the twists and turns of an adventure. And if that's the way I want the experience of my life, I have to go create that. I got to go pick that and get on that ride, and which means like taking actions and setting goals and creating things that creates the experience of that life, right? Vacation and adventure doesn't work if I have a 9-to-5 job that I go in and do the same thing every day. I have to create a life that actually puts twists and turns and unknowns in front of me and gambles and whatnot. So what's the experience you want to have of your life? And if you think about that, time is going to play into that. How you relate to time. Is there never enough time? Is there always too much time? Does time go too slow? The relationship you have to money is going to relate to that. The relationship you have to friends and family is going to connect to that. The relationship you have to yourself, to exercise, to your health, to this podcast, to everything. And so if you start asking these questions, which many of us have never thought about, you can start to cultivate and design the experience of your life. My guest today, in reading about him before we hopped on here, it seems like he's been on quite a journey and a ride, and the experience of his life, first of all, seems interesting and unique, and it feels very, how would I say, just very intentional in how he created it. And we're going to find out if that's the case, but let me tell you a little bit about him. So his name is Terry Rich. He is a disruptive innovator and entrepreneur with a drive for integrity and honesty. He's worked in the trenches, survived new business trends, and had success with generational changes. And he's given away over $1 billion. We're going to talk about that because that doesn't even make any sense. It's time to welcome him. Wait, you know what? Actually, I want to tell you a little bit more about him because there's more things that you should know. He's an international speaker. He was appointed by 3 governors to increase lottery sales and profits, which he did by over 50%. He also led the blank park zoo to profitability. I didn't know people ran, I mean, obviously people ran zoos, but I never met anybody in my life who ran a zoo. And he took them to profitability from a $600,000 deficit. I feel bad for those animals. What were they eating, when the zoo had no money? Whenever I'm in tough times, I look at my dog and my cat and I think, you guys are going to starve if something doesn't turn around. So I wonder what was happening in that zoo. And as he was doing this, it was the second largest attended attraction in the state. Um, he has also appeared on networks like HBO, CNN, CNBC, USA Today, the New York Times. There was a movie on Starz that he appeared in, and he was a panel guest on The Tonight Show. I could go on and on. Terry Rich, thanks for being here and taking some time out of your life to be with us.
It's always fun to meet new friends.
Thanks, man. So there's so many things we could dive in. I'm just curious when I never know what I'm gonna talk about when I start an episode. I like just feel like what's present for me. But I always like to ask my guests when they're here, to comment on it if they have anything. Is there anything that you have to say about the experience of your life?
Um, yeah, it wasn't planned for sure. An instinctive what feels good today, let's get her done. What makes you happy? Because I grew up on a farm, and when I grew up on a farm, I thought I was going to be a math major. I was doing really well, passed out of a year of calc and physics, got into college, and it just got boring. I was going to be a teacher or professor somewhere, and someone said, "You go over here and make a living talking." I thought, "Oh, that's for me." So I did that, and I got into television. And as I got into television, all my buddies were getting jobs to broadcast, and I was lingering around, partying, having fun. And finally, somebody came in and said, "Hey, we need somebody to help with this cable television franchise." And I thought, well, that's TV, I guess. So I started in cable television, and it was something like the start of Google. I got to start in with a guy named Ted Turner, who was just absolutely
Oh,
crazy, absolutely creative, and got to work with all these people. And it was programming. So we got to, work with the ESPNs and start the MTVs in the world. Everything we touched turned to gold. It was so much fun. And so that went really, really well. And about halfway through is when I did the Carson Show bit. I just out of the blue did a promotion. And with that promotion, got to be on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show, 20 million homes. And so that helped my career a little bit. And ultimately, worked my way up the ranks, got the stock options, all that sort of thing. And at age 40, the Bass brothers came in, took a run at our stock, and we cashed out. So I decided to do my own companies just to try something new. Did that for 10 years, went really well. The idea that the Johnny Carson show wanted to do was to do an uplink from our hometown. And I took that idea and started doing work for HBO, doing free previews where you turn on the TV and you'd see HBO. Hey, Marge, they're showing free movies. And so we would do that. And then in between the movies, say, hey, you'd like to get HBO? Call us right now, 1-800 cable TV or whatever the number was. And we were selling millions of dollars worth of HBO on the weekend. So I started doing that for all the different companies and then ESPN and then pay-per-view fights. But at age 50, midlife crisis. So what do you do then? Try something new. And that's when I got the call from an ex-governor that said, we're going to take over the zoo because the city's losing money with it. You want to help run it and try to turn it around. So that worked. Yeah, that was pretty easy blocking and tackling in business. And we did some fun, creative ways, but all of those trying to learn how to either start a new business or doing new things, how to improve upon it, not just more money coming in, but also saving money with the service we had. And then I got the call from another governor who said, "Hey, you did a good job there. Would you like to? The guy's retiring. Would you want to run the lottery?" So I ran that for 10 years, and you can kind of tell I'm a marketer and a promoter. But halfway through the lottery, we had someone internally do a big fraud, the largest lottery fraud in US history. And so all of a sudden I had to get serious and we helped crack and get full confessions and convictions for the largest lottery fraud in US history. So that's kind of the history. And all of those just kind of happened. I have never been fired. I've always kind of decided it's time to move on. And I think it's kind of like going to the grocery store. If it takes 3 minutes, I'm kind of watching the next time. Can I get it in 2 minutes and 58 seconds? How do you improve? How do you come up with an idea that takes it to the next step? So by the end of this, I've got $2 million ideas I'd like to pass along, but we'll see if someone can help that may want to take those ideas and take them on.
So there's so much here, and the thing that I was found the most interesting as you were just talking was, and I think when we're young, our 20s, our 30s, and I would say those are the ages people are trying to figure it out, right? They're trying to figure out their family life, their career life. It's so we many of us are trying to like stack it in order, right? Oh, if we do this, then we'll do this, right? We're trying to have it all kind of planned, and often that's just not how life goes.
It
Um,
isn't.
when
Yes.
you when you think about all this and you think about how these opportunities kept kind of appearing and being created for you, what do you think set you up to make that possible? Why did the doors keep getting, put in front of you?
I think it's encouragement. My dad was always encouraging. Even if I had a crazy idea, he'd always laugh and say, "Well, yeah, go ahead and try it." And he always said, "Hey, go to work for someone, work hard. When you get up to 62, you're going to get Social Security. Then you're going to be happy." And I realized out of the cable business that when they cashed us out, I thought I would be there the rest of my life. It was so much fun, so entrepreneurial, so successful. But I realized when that cashed out that I made all my goals, my financial goals, my current goals, all that. I had a great family. And I realized that happiness doesn't happen when you meet a goal. Happiness happens on the way to success. It's the experience that you have going up through that. And it took me to my 50s to understand that to come up with the best idea, you don't just kind of come up with it. I went to Napa Valley. I came out to California and I'm drinking wine thinking, hey, those guys are just going out back and they're picking the grapes on the grapevines and they're coming up with award winning wines, right? No, no, no. The people who make wines go all over the valley because every place, depending on the year, has different soil temperatures and moisture and all that sort of thing. And they get a bushel basket and they fill it. And in today's society, you got to realize you got to fill it with diversity. You've got to try this grape and that grape and all these. And so when you're trying to come up with new ideas and you're sitting around brainstorming, you don't want everybody to look just like you. You want different ages, different types, sexes, diversity to the max because today's world has such an array of people and your audience. You can sell to so many more than in the old days. Usually you had this confined market that you were trying to sell it to. So as I do talks and as I do even today, everybody, I got that guy can't keep on track. I'm trying to fill bushel baskets with ideas, hoping that just one idea is the way to success.
I really appreciate the happiness being in the experience, which is goes back to what I started with, right? Like what do you want the experience of your life to be? And I think about it like 90% of the life is the journey. 10% is the results, right? And we get the car, we get the money, we get the wife or the husband or whatever, and then we're
You
back
get
in
there and
the
then you say,
yeah.
so what?
Yeah, well, then we're back right in the normal again, right? We're back in the experience. And so if the experience sucks, but we get all the stuff, well, then the experience of our life sucks, right? And we have all this stuff. So it's really nice to hear someone say that who I did not give that to. I also love the diversity piece. I was just writing an article about the five secrets of confidence. And one of them was this idea of inclusion, that somebody who's truly confident welcomes all the different like ideas and differences that people bring because they know they're not threatening to them. They know that it actually makes them better. And you can identify someone with false confidence as someone who actually shuts that out because they're actually afraid, right? They're fearful of all these ideas that they would be like boxed out or overtaken,
Yeah. I
whatnot.
love learning new ideas. I mean, even the last 4 or 5 years, I went to the Life is Good. You ever see the T-shirt, Life is Good,
Sure.
the kind of stick
Yeah.
figures? They were talking about how they had all the millennials in a room and everybody's coming in saying, "Yeah, I have to come. I have to get this project done, and I have to do this, and I have to do that." And they called everybody in and said, "We need to change the dynamic here. We're never going to say I don't want to hear the word I have to anymore. It's I get to." And by
Mhm.
changing that one word, and that taught me when I heard that, changed it from a negative situation to a positive, and now I get to do this today. I've had a great experience in life, and someone actually lets me be on their podcast to talk about good things that are happening.
Mhm.
So I found that to be kind of an eye opener to simply change that around and how much that changes your brain on positive thinking.
I learned that same phrase probably in the last few years, and it was when I was going through my dog was a puppy keeping me up all night, having to go, to the bathroom in
Yeah,
the middle of the night. And someone said to me, "What if you viewed it as I get to?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "You get to love this dog. You get
right.
to take care of this thing and you're going to get all the rewards that come with it. But if, but and it was you're exactly right. It was a game changer in mindset and view. And now it's you get to do everything or you
The
get
the
to
oth
not do it.
Yeah, the other thing I found was, growing up when you are 20, 21, you have a lot more experience and you can take a lot more risks. You don't think as much about money, but then you start getting responsibility. You buy a house, you have a family, whatever. As I had successes, and each time, if I made money on something, I realized that I need to do what a company did, and that was to do R&D, research and development, so that I took 10% of the money, and then I tried to come up with the craziest new idea I could come up with and spent it on that. But just like gambling, once the money's gone, if it fails, I'm done. I don't, you don't bet the entire market again when you're trying to create new things. And too many people have one really good idea, good entrepreneur, and then they take that money and bankroll the whole thing
Mm,
again. You want to continue to grow and look for when you've got that bushel basket, find those gems as you do it. But the other thing that's I think is really important is stressing that failure is the first step to success. I learned that from my granddaughter who at age 1 pulled herself up on the couch and took one step, and what happened? Boom, she fell over and fell, right? And
mhm,
then what did she do though? She didn't say, "Well, that was a stupid idea. I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore." No, she crawled back up. Too many of us have a great idea, it fails, and immediately quit.
mm,
Even when we sent men to the moon, most people don't realize they failed 90% of the time during that mission, and they had to do course corrections. They didn't just say like a project manager say, "Okay, we're going to be here at this point, and here at this point, and here at this point. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Good luck. We got everything planned. NASA, we're good. Goodbye." No, they were watching and refining over 90% of the time. So failure helps you learn to take how to take that next step and to build upon it and not just give up.
When you're for yourself or for others and you're looking at ideas, I think of myself as someone who's always thinking of ideas and it's fun. It's like a fun thing. I'm like, "Oh," but I don't know that I have a process of what's actually a good idea versus just an idea. Do you have a way that you evaluate if you were taking that 10%, how do you evaluate your ideas as good or just like, "Oh, that was fun, but nothing there."
Well, first of all, most entrepreneurs aren't great operations people. We all have good ideas. So you try to surround yourself with good people. And back to your diversity point, you want a really good lawyer, a really good accountant. Most people, you can find people for free and then maybe give them a cut of the action down the road or you don't pay them anything. But you need to find people that work with you, that have strengths that you don't have, and you put those together. And then, of course, the idea is brainstorming, creating an innovative environment because it's kind of a two-step process. The first step is think of the bushel basket. I love doing creative ideas by getting group of people together. Again, diverse group. Get the receptionist in. Get people you don't normally have around the table, and you write everything down. You should have a pencil and paper by your bed. You can have a grease pen in your shower if that's where you come up with your ideas. So you're writing things down so that you can always come back. So you say when you get your group together doing group brainstorming, you put everybody together, get the bushel basket full. I want 100 ideas in the next 10 minutes. And you don't discuss them at all. Every idea, you got to get rid of the no mans. Nobody can say, no, man, we tried that before. Because let me give you an example. What color is the stop sign?
Red,
What color is the yield sign?
yellow.
Nope, they've been red and white since 1971, way before you were born, because people have preconceived notions. So in creativity, you want to get all the ideas together in that bushel basket. Now, you were saying,
Mhm.
which one should I take and how would I do it? Well, that's step number 2. And what step number 2 is then bringing those ideas out and getting the group of people around. At that point, you say yes to judgment rather than no to judgment. That means the lawyer can say, "Hey, you could get sued on this one," and you can say that, but the group together decides what percolates the top. Now you all of a sudden have group buy-in and everybody's ready to go kill this project and do really well with it. The other thing during COVID that we kind of came up with when I went to work for the state, I walked in and I said, "Hey, do we put an animal on the ticket, lottery ticket? Do we do this? Do we do that?" And they just started melting down. They came back and they said, "We can't do all this." And I didn't realize that when you're giving ideas, you don't want to overwhelm anybody either. You want to just get them on a piece of paper and get those 100 ideas because it's like if the king says, "Oh, poop," and everybody runs to the bathroom, people respect their boss and want to please their boss. So we came up with the concept, individual ideas to keep adding to that bushel basket by saying, we're going to put one of three things down on all our emails or when we're talking face to face. Number one is, this is advice or this should be done, action required. That means you better do it because the boss is saying you do it. Well, that's not 100%. That's only 1 or 2% of the ideas you have that you give somebody. The other is FYI, for your information. You want somebody to know about it so we can discuss it later. But the one I like to use the most is COT, which stands for consider or throw away. Now, there are rules if you want to use this and try to add this to your bushel basket. You tell people, when I put COT on it, do not respond, do not react, do not smile. This is a no judgment deal. This is just an idea. I want you to, if you have time to think about it, but if you're busy, just throw it away. The other is give me your ideas. And when you started doing this COT concept, preamble that this is just an idea, all of a sudden all that pressure was lifted from the people I worked with because they knew I wasn't demanding a job changing deal. I was just giving an idea. And then they started giving ideas that may have been afraid to give me early on because they didn't want to be fired or they didn't want to look dumb. Even the receptionist was coming up with ideas because in most companies you have a suggestion box, you stick it in there, the receptionist puts it in there, and then 3 weeks later somebody might see it. But in the meantime, she or he's downstairs in the break room going, management never listens to me. So by using COT, you add and you add to all of these, and then you take the next step, which is making a decision and deciding to act. Take that one or two top ones, take a portion of your research and development money or your profits if you're in a private entrepreneurial, and that's what you take to build and continue to grow. And change is so important because change is inevitable. Nobody ever thought there would be no taxis in New York, yet look what Uber did. Or the mail, always thought everybody's going to have to ship the mail until FedEx and UPS came in, charging a lot more, but giving better service. So change is inevitable. And that's why you want to always continue to look, what can we do to add to the ideas and the company that we have. It'll even though it has worked in the past, probably won't work in the future.
You have a very, optimistic, positive, inclusive, like welcoming sense about you and the way you talk about business and these things. I'm curious when you look at the world in today, right? And if you turn on any news, basically, it's like doom and destruction, right? Every day it's the problems in the world or the violence or the recession or something. Um, how do you when you're navigating or working with people and they're focused on the fear, right? The fear and the negative, how do you steer them?
I think by finding something that is positive for them, looking for things that trip their trigger. If they're in the wrong position or they've got a project that isn't for them, you want to get because I have a lot of things. I'm not going to do a report. I couldn't do a 20-page report if my life depended on it. But I could come up with an idea to say, hey, how about this? And then find the person that can do it. So you try to find things that they like. You listen if they've got family. I never could take when I worked for the cable company and I ran a cable system, the receptionist or the people of customer service that just would say, I just need to do my job. I got 8 hours. I got kids at home. I just need them. I need the job, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, I've never been able to operate like that. So I think that trying to find ways to reward and to say something positive to them usually gets a positive response back. So even the worst person, you want to kind of say, man, is this isn't quite happening, tell me what can I do? Well, the company's often with here, give me 3 ideas of how to help. Let's see if we can figure out something. All of a sudden they feel a part of it. They feel part of the team because it's that's one of the hardest things to keep things. In fact, I'm in a breakfast club that are presidents of major international insurance companies and universities and everything else. And what makes me excited, 2 things make me taught me kinda, everybody's kind of in the same boat, that you're not
Mhm.
alone in having bad feelings some days. Everybody fails once in a while. He was, well, every person that gets up and speaks say, Johnny's in Harvard and Susie's at Yale, but Joey, we're still having problems. Everybody's got a problem at home, no doubt about it. Even Ted Turner told me one time he was mad because His accountant just told him he was worth a $500 million yet, and he was seeing 2 psychiatrists during the day, and I'm thinking, "God, if this guy can do it, so can I," and I think that's the message. You'll see a lot of successful people that you don't think can do it. Well, they did it, so why can't you?
Do you well, let me say this, when I work with a lot of people and they'll share with me the outside circumstances controlling them, right? Oh, gas prices, the economy, whatever. And then they're making their decisions based on these fear, these negative things that maybe or may not be happening depending on who you talk to or whatever. And I often am like, hey, look, I can't control the economy. I can't control the gas prices. I just got to focus on what I can control, right? That's the game I can play. When how do these things like is that your take? What do you do when you hear like just on a personal level, you hear these things going on, you can't not hear them.
Yeah.
Do you adjust based on the more negative things that come in, or do you still stay focused on
Yeah.
like the way that you operate?
That's a good question. I probably adjust it to how I wanna think about it. I think that's where our news is today, right? You watch the channel that you kind of where you wanna hear it. And so if something really negative is happening, I can justify it that, either the news isn't reporting it correctly, that, I believe it's more like this, or geez, if I could just help change this, I can't believe that this is happening. But I try to control what I can control. I'm sure there's thousands of sayings of, do what you can do, but don't worry about what you can't control. Um, and try to find something that makes me happy. I wake up sometimes in the morning, but once I take a shower, uh, here's something else that has worked for me, and that is there are certain things that when I've had success that I don't give up.
Mm,
One of those came when the cable company was wrapping up, and I had the largest cable company call me and said, "Would you do one of these free HBO previews?" So I was going in to do the deal, and I was early, so I stopped. I was in Denver, stopped by a McDonald's, got a hash brown cinnamon roll and medium diet coke. You know what? I walked in and got $1 million deal that morning.
mm.
So if I'm on live TV somewhere and it's a big deal nationwide or I got something else, guess what I have for breakfast? Cinnamon roll, hash brown, medium diet coke. It isn't that I kind of superstitious. I wear certain suits when I want to
Sure.
make sure because I've done well in doing a speech. It isn't that's going to bring me good luck, but what it does is put my mind in a state of
Mhm.
mind that makes me know that I've been successful before this. I'm going to be successful again.
Mm,
So, I think it's more putting your mind into that phase versus that
mhm.
you're actually doing that. But everybody sees things and is gonna have negative things happen to them in their life. So, somehow you have to look at it and try to deal with it. And I think those are a couple of ways to do it. Find things that make you happy and be sure you have those in your pocket when you need them.
You wrote a book called Dare to Dream, Dare to Act, Unlock Your Ideas to Greater Success. What is, I have a long list of books I want to read. I read a lot. What's the thing about this book? Like, why should I be reading this book? And you're right. Why should people be reading this book?
I think it's back to the point I made earlier. If this guy can do it, why can't I? And the two-step process in coming up with ideas and know that failure will sometimes happen. I tell the story in this one that I came out of college. I'm doing cable television. I'm actually doing on air, and I looked over and I didn't have any 5 o'clock shadow, so I sat down and decided to write to Gillette and tell them how much I love their Track Two razor. And I wrote to him, and I got into the frame of mind of what would happen, the what if. Maybe you're thinking about it when you went for Powerball or Mega Millions. What if I got a contract and I got to go be on national television? How cool would that be? And it got me in a mind of wanting to do it and learning to do that. 2 weeks later to the day, knowing they were going to take me to New York to be on a national commercial, I got the letter and it said, "Dear Mr. Rich, expressing your complete satisfaction with your Track 2 razor. We're glad you enjoy it, but you're out the wrong company. The other company makes it, and they sent me this letter." I didn't do my research, but you know what? Because I had that dream all of a sudden, daring to dream, and I tried to find ways to do that, that got me to the point that I came up with the idea that got me on the Johnny Carson show, that got me on HBO, got me on Stars, and got me on all these others. All boils back to that failure, took me to that next step because I tried the next one and I dared to act.
I I can't agree with you more. I have this vision of in my mind, when I think about making choices or going out there, it's like there's two doors in front of me. I can try something, and one door is try something, the other door is try something else, or stay in the room that I'm in. Right. If I stay in the room that I'm in, nothing changes. But if I open one of those doors, I have no idea what's beyond it. Now, if I get in, people are like, but what if you pick the wrong door? And I'm like, what if you pick the wrong door? Inside of the next room, there's more doors.
That's right.
So if you don't like the room, if that next door is a failure or it doesn't work out, we'll pick another door. And ultimately, the idea is that if you just keep choosing or trying new things, eventually you're going to find a door that you go, oh, this really works for me, or I really like what's on the other side of this.
Especially if it's something you enjoy doing. I had a professor in college that kicked me off in the creativity class that said it's better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing.
Mm.
And I always thought that in government, they try to succeed at doing nothing just to survive their job, but absolutely better to have tried and failed than to succeed at doing nothing.
Do you have one failure that you look back on and that at the time you maybe can share how you felt about it that was really hard, but then that you can see where it led you?
The razor gig was one. Another one coming out of that, I had this great big contract I told you about when I got my breakfast and had all this money that cash flowed me for years. And so I decided to try to I wanted to get into baseball or do a show of some sort. So I bought the rights to the NAIA College World Series, figuring ESPN has the NCAA, this ought to go.
Mm.
And I got some of the right people around me. I got it on Fox Sports, but in fact, the guy that sold advertising didn't sell a single dime. So it rained all 3 days of the television. I brought in an NBC truck to do it. All went well on air. Didn't sell a single dime, lost $25,000. But I had money that I had made so well with the other. Again, I took only a small percentage.
Mm.
It was a write off and it was an experience, and it gave me another contact to call next time I needed an uplink truck and a production truck for the next event.
So as you look now at the next you keep I said to you before we started recording, you've had all these, you had a career, you ended it, you started a new one, you transitioned. You have these mountains that you keep climbing. Where are you at now? What's the next mountain?
Um, I think too. I think the story on the lottery fraud, largest lottery fraud in U.S. history, has made it to CNBC, American Greed, and a few others. I think that's probably a big documentary at some point. There have been 3 or 4 companies that have been coming at us to do something. That one could do well. The speeches are the absolute great retirement. The other thing I did when I was in television, my own company, I started a crazy show called Soccer Slam. I decided that I was doing work for hire, but when I was done, I didn't have an asset. So thought I need a program, and WWE was the number one program on cable. So what other sport have low paying people? That's soccer. So I rented a rink and spent 150 grand and did 4 shows called Soccer Slam, full contact indoor soccer. We threw a second ball in, so it was real fast paced. Hired stuntmen to do all the fights. This coach was messing around with that player's wife, and just all these storylines. Just think WWE. And I got on Fox Sports World. That was back 25 years ago. Didn't hear a single word on it. Remember? Better to have tried and failed than just succeeded doing nothing. I went into Best Buy one day and I saw that there was a Soccer Slam video game. Interesting. So anyway, there we have an arrangement so that Sony can use that. But better yet, I had a call 2 years ago. Someone said, "Hey, I heard this show is right before the World Cup, and would like to do a story on it." And then somebody called and said, "I'd like to do a documentary." So it just got released. So we're kind of promoting that, called Game Gone Wild: The Soccer Slam Story. And it's about how we put this together and what happened. And, we had brown cards. Somebody farted, you give them a brown card. Just really crazy, stupid stuff. And so that just came out on the Hearst. Hearst has a free app called it's called Very Local, and on that is this documentary now that's an hour long. So been promoting that. So that's some fun. But the speeches are great time, and I know at some point I got to go. So what the heck? But I do hope that when I do go, that I've made the request that I'm in the casket with one eye open and a smile as people come up.
So I love the Soccer Slam is a great um it's a great story about it feels like fun and silliness and play. And it was like almost like two kids sitting around going, "What if this? And what if this? And what if this?" And usually people are like, "No, that can't work." And it really feels like you just go with that, right? You're just like throwing stuff against the wall. It's sticking. Let's more stuff.
Absolutely, that's exactly the way it was.
And I love that. I tried something last year that just completely bombed. You know, I had it. I actually, I'll share this. I don't think you know this about me, but about 2 years ago, I got frustrated in dating. I was like, "I'm tired of this, the apps, all the things." You know, it wasn't that I had a problem finding dates, but they were leading nowhere, and I was like, "I'm ready for something serious." And so I realized I was the problem. I was the common denominator of all the dates I'd been on, right? So I said, "You know what? I'm just not good at picking who I date. I often am picking from attraction and lust and not the values that really matter." And so I said to 5 of my friends, "I want you to pick the woman I date." Now here's the catch. I was invited to a wedding in Tulum, and I said, "I'm gonna take whoever you pick to this wedding in Tulum for 2 weeks." And we put it online and it went viral, and I was on the news in San Diego and did a bunch of podcasts, and over 100 women applied, and my 5 friends interviewed them, and the women who got further along got to have their friends interview me, and then my 5 friends picked a winning woman.
Wow.
About a month ago, I married that woman. Um, and,
Great story.
thank you. And, could not have gone better, right? There was so much personal growth in, like, surrendering and turning it over and trust and really knowing, having people, who really knew what you wanted, but taking your crap out of the way almost.
Yep, yep.
And, I preface this because after that I went, "Oh, I'm gonna take this same idea and apply it to a business conversation." And I put it out there and it fell flat on its face. Like I didn't, it was like you put it out there and while one went viral, this one just got crickets. And it was a great lesson and reminder of you got to just keep throwing stuff, right? One
That's
hit,
right.
one didn't, one wasn't.
Yeah,
If,
you
imagine
can't
if I had,
just do one thing or because when
yeah,
it does fail, then you feel like a complete failure. You wanna have backups and realms.
or if I'd
You're
flipped the order, right? If I had done the business one first and it failed, I never would have done the one that would have worked. And
that now makes you happy.
right, yeah, and you never know. Um,
That's
and
a
so
great story.
I just hear that in so much of what you're sharing in Soccer Slam is for people out there listening, it's like, what are those wild ideas that you have that someone convinces you are not good enough? Now, you're not maybe going to try all of them, but maybe you could run some up the ladder and see what happens.
My son was just thinking someone like you're doing, if is thinking, "I wish I had an app that would allow people who are having a bad day because something happened at work and you could relate to the same people that you have and have a group chat that isn't the romantic, that sort of thing, so you have other people to relate to." I know we're gonna talk about, some questions about male, that you wanna talk about men, but let me tell you the 2 ideas that I haven't got done.
Go for it.
They failed, but I think are great $1,000,000 ideas. Number 1, so I got a call from a small town and they were a quarter mile off the interstate, 60,000 cars going by the town, but they weren't stopping. What could we do to do something? And they said, "Well, you go by, you need gas, you need food, but there's a McDonald's and a gas store at every stop. The other thing you really need is bathrooms, but not just any bathrooms, clean bathrooms. Let's get a big building. Let's put in 50 different stalls, men and women. We'll have Gerber design it and they can do research on what people like and dislike. Get Charmin and toilet paper that people can try. So Baby Ruth's, Tootsie Rolls. We'll have an outhouse outside, a place for the dogs to go, and that sort of thing. We'll sell T-shirts. I got pooped out in Menlo, Iowa. I got PO'd in all these different things. They didn't want to be known as the poop cap of the world, but I'm thinking, you know what? That's something that somebody could develop somewhere and say, we've got the cleanest bathrooms, and I guarantee everybody come in, you can sell all sorts of stuff in there. There's one. I haven't put that one together. Number 2, I got a call to say when we started launching Mega Millions in the Powerball states, and they said, "Could you help us with an idea to promote Mega Millions?" So I'm driving home again, trying to write ideas down as I'm thinking. I look up and there's the moon, and it was a crescent moon, the little sliver like a thumbnail. And I thought, why couldn't we put the jackpot amount up on the dark side of the moon? We could own the moon as the billboard. So I called around and I got hung up on a few times thinking I was some kind of a weirdo. But basically, they said the shooting up a laser or a spotlight it would be broke up with atmosphere. So that still is a good possibility if somebody wants to invest. I think we just got to get a hold of Elon Musk to send it up from a satellite rather than trying to go through our atmosphere. So there's $2 million ideas for you.
Well, the second one sounds like an idea. It sounds like a fun idea. It sounds like a extraordinarily expensive. Yeah, you need like an Elon Musk to get an image on the moon. Doesn't sound like it would be a low budget idea,
But it would
but
be,
it's fun.
let's go back to the poop idea. When
Yeah,
I was at the zoo, someone said, they said, we can't spend any money. We're losing all this money. We need to get people in. What could we get more people through the door? And I started thinking, well, they want to spend $2 million, but we didn't have $2 million to spend for a new exhibit. And I said, well, what do we have a lot of? And they said, well, all the animals poops. I said, well, let's do an exhibit called Scoop on Poop. So we showed what elephant poop looks like and deer poop. All these kids are coming in, giggling, laughing,
yeah,
just having a
yeah.
great time and telling their friends. Everybody's coming in just to see what all the different kinds are and what the way they're different. But the real kicker was we decided that in our state, we have all these white-tailed deer and that tiger poop actually is a repellent. They're a predator and a deer will smell that even though they've never seen a tiger and they would run. So we started selling tiger poop in gallon buckets for 20 bucks and we sold over $25,000 that summer just in tiger poop. So, it's expenses is one thing and taking advantage of things you have is the other.
Oh, I
Listen,
love
let's
that.
go to let's go to the men question though. You were going to
Sure.
ask me a men's question.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna, I talk a lot about on this podcast and the blogs I write about masculinity and I think, there's a just to set this up for you, over the last 100 years, being a man has shifted a lot, right? 100 years ago, the man was the provider, the man was the protector. It was women didn't work 100 years ago like they do now, and the world is just different. When you look at when you look at what it means to be a man from your perspective, I think I know you're a grandfather, so you're a parent, you've been in relationships. What has been the most successful things that you've been able to discover about like being a man and being in relationship and partnership with your family and whatnot?
I think over the last 20, 30 years, you learn pretty quickly you're not perfect. I grew up in an era where you were strong, dominant. Uh, I don't know if the word's dominant, but you were strong and not afraid to take the chances because no one would say, well, if you hear people say, I don't know, should a woman be able to do that, or should this person be able to do this or that? So I think that today, I feel a little guilty some ways, that there's some guilt in being a white old male with a bald head and that in the there was I too privileged. And so I think you lose some of that old masculinity in that. So I think you just got to know that if you are good to other people and you help other people, and I can talk to anybody, anywhere, any place, that there's still a good reward in trying to be a leader, but being a leader because it's me being a leader, not just because I'm a man.
What do you think the like best um attributes or most successful attributes of modern leadership are?
Confidence probably would be a big one. Basically, if you are in charge of something and you say, I want to get this Diet Coke can and make it into something else, and it's going to make us $1 million. The people who work for you will try to make it into the $1 million idea. So if you aren't confident when you come in and say, I've got an idea, it probably will not get executed well. So I think that's probably the big one. And honesty probably is still pretty high on the list. Somebody doesn't believe that you are a genuine person, you'll never get much done. And I think that as I talk to as I've tried to coach females, employees and leaders, I've always tried to say, don't be afraid to say, I don't know.
Mm,
Often people try to mask their leadership by just making a decision and not saying if they don't know it that I don't know. And that really gets them burnt. So that would be my other kind of, if something doesn't feel right, just say, hey,
yeah.
I don't do that. I don't understand it. Let's find somebody who does and let's get it done. Sounds like a good idea.
I love asking men this. I haven't asked that many on this podcast, but in men's groups that I lead and in with friends, I'll ask, What do you think the hardest for you? What's been the most challenging aspect of being a man in your life?
Probably the new era of, feeling that I must be bad because I am a man.
Mm,
I think that's a new guilt feeling that, is, you don't wanna be too overconfident or believe to be say, "I'm proud to be a man," you probably don't say that, that's probably the hardest. You can be proud to be a woman, you can be proud to be different races and ethnicities, but, um, uh, and I don't know the answer to that or why that shouldn't be okay to do, but I think there is that feeling that you're a little reluctant to talk about your success or brag about it, where that confidence could lead to good next steps.
mm. Yeah, it's an interesting I hear a lot of I get especially from depending on who the guys are and what they are, I get a lot of men, it's the pressure to succeed or to live up to some expectation, or this idea, I hear often like the idea to provide, but also to understand that I don't need to be the provider because women can do what I can do and this confusion. So I'm just always curious.
And I don't know whether that's good, bad, or indifferent. It's the way our society is as we
Yeah,
evolve. So I want to be able to accept that and to do that. And I'm trying, I do try to do that. But in the back of your mind, you still have that of, hey, if I'm successful, I'd like to be more successful.
yeah,
Although I'm as encouraging to my daughter, who's just kicking butt right now in her job, as you can be in
yeah.
that success. So you see it in TV and movies anymore that most men, you see very few, unless it's Rambo type folks. But as a father and a husband, you don't see many strong men. They're usually a little bit weaker and kind of goofy in their approach.
I think there's a pendulum in life, right? And when it swings too far one way, it swings back the other way. And what I've noticed is men for again, not for good or for bad, just is that we seem to say they're on one side or the other. It's either like we're strong and we're tough, or we're soft and we're weak and all emotional. And I strongly am an advocate and believe that we can be both and we need to be both. You as a leader want to be strong and confident and very and direct in what you want and what you're committed to. And when you come home to your daughter or to your family, they might, they want to sit on dad or grandpa's lap and they want to cuddle and they want the softness and they want the gentleness. And for a long time, men don't know how to be both. They know how to
Yeah,
be one or the other, but not both. And I think that's the men that we really need to be is that we can navigate and be both depending on the situations we're
you get pretty deep pretty fast. You know that?
in. Thanks. I've been told.
That's good.
Um,
I mean, it's a great discussion. There's no easy answer in the society that we're in and what we're trying to do to make it very equal for everyone to have, a chance,
yeah.
knowing that those that have lots and lots and lots of money will always have a little better outcome. So do you then equate it to everybody and not, bring us down to a lower level for everyone to be equal in money and everything else? So I don't know the easy answer. I think it's your generation that's gonna get to make those decisions, and I'm gonna delegate that to you to do.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there who have set us up in more challenging ways. And just from being with you, it feels like, you have done your best to be a good person, be a good leader, be a good father, be a good mentor for people and done your best to do the right and honest thing. And I think that's all we can ask of anyone at any given time, right? We all have our own challenges. And
But
some
I've
of us
screwed
know.
up and learned to say I
Yeah,
screwed up if somebody
yeah.
asks me and questions me on that, so
And some of us are doing the things that aren't serving us or serving others continuously, and we know, right? It doesn't
yeah.
feel good, that they're making it a little more challenging. But
Well, this is fun. I appreciate it, Alex. Today's a good time, man.
thank you, Terry Rich. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your life, your wisdom, your $2 million ideas, and just your experience of this ride and this journey called life with us. If people want to find you, learn more about you, what's the best place for them to go do that?
Website is terryspeaks.com. Like I'm talking, terryspeaks.com is my website, and it has a contact and the books and all that sort of information. But I'm not here to sell anything. It's just fun to
Yep.
pontificate a little bit and have a good discussion. So thank you.
Awesome. Terry, thank you so much for being here with me and spending time with me. Everyone listening, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Please share this episode with somebody who you know it can support or who it might resonate with. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Honestly, I'm just a rebel who found a cause and has a dream, and I'm super grateful for your support. If you got anything from this, please help me out and share this podcast with one person today. You can find me at thedreammason.com or at inspirationalalex on Instagram. You are a dream mason because your dreams don't build themselves.